Hey guys, so I am 3 days out from Rock and Roll San Diego Half Marathon, and I wanted to walk you through some of the mindset work and preparation that I do for a goal race. And the reason why mindset is so important is because we all know that we put in the training, we know what we're capable of, but there we have a lot of doubt, and it's very common during the taper weeks to forget about all those big training long runs and speed workouts that you did, and to start focusing on your body, the way your body feels, and starting to get doubts. And so one of the reasons why I think this is so impactful is that this is going to realign your mind and get you laser focused on going out there and doing your best on race day. So I'm actually working on a project, which is a race week prep journal to get you ready to get your mind right to run your best race ever. And so I wanted to come on and just share some of the tips and walk you through some of the things that I am going to do and that I think would be helpful for you to go through on race week to get ready. So the first thing is, of course, to set your race goals. And I want you to set 3 goals. So A goal, B goal, C goal. A goal is like that pie in the sky goal that you absolutely would be the best day ever. This is if the weather cooperates, your body feels great. This is your big stretch goal. And again, I want you to be happy with any of these goals. So your B goal is that, like, okay, this would be great. I think that I'm capable of this. This is the goal that would make me happy goal, B goal. C goal is like, if all else fails, as long as this happens, I'm good. And a lot of times that is finishing. So it doesn't have to be even finishing under a certain time. These goals don't even have to be time related. You can have a goal that I want to negative split, or I want to pace correctly, or I want to feel good, or I want to finish knowing that I gave it my all no matter what the pace was, right? So these goals don't have to be time related. The second thing I want you to do, and this is something that maybe you've never done before, is I want you to write down a list of your training wins. So I want you to go back to your Garmin data or your VDOT data or your training journal or your memory, your photos maybe if you take photos on runs like me, and recall all of the hard work you did, whether that's reading how many miles all those long runs you did, if it's a particular speed workout you did, if it's thinking back to your training and writing it down, directing your brain to all the reasons why you have put in the work and that you are ready. Because during the taper, we can forget, right? So that is super important. I want you to make sure you do that and that you read that again on race morning. So the next one is just some notes on the course. So make sure that you go and you look at your course and you figure out, you're making sure that you know where you're gonna park and what time of the race starts, and getting your mind wrapped around those details and just kind of walking yourself through the course. So noticing the elevation, because the worst thing is when you start and you realize that there's like all these giant hills that you didn't know. So this is gonna affect your pacing, and it's gonna affect your mind if you're not prepared for what is going to be coming up on the course. So make sure that you are thinking through things like what challenges are potentially gonna come up, and you're preparing yourself there. So the next one is your race plan, and I recommend writing out your race plan by hour or in time blocking. And what I usually do is I start with the race start time, and then I back into figuring out what time I need to wake up, what time I need to get dressed, and what I'm going to drink and eat on race morning, what time I need to leave the house, what the parking situation is, what I'm going to be doing as my pre-race warm-up. And you guys, I know this is a lot of detail. Like, you can even do things like look up on blogs and figure out the porta potty situation. Like, are the lines going to be really long? What time generally do people get there and they've had an easy time getting there? Or I will find on a race report, like someone maybe got there at whatever time and the porta potty lines were so long and they missed the gun going off. So that's a mental note not to get there at that time, right? Get there early. And knowing yourself and your personality. If you're someone who gets really anxious by being late, give yourself extra time in the morning. It's fine. So you want to know what you're doing for your warm up. For a marathon, you might not actually do that much running. You might just do some like some like in place warming up. because you're going to be warming up in those early miles. But for half marathon, I recommend at least a short run with maybe some strides or dynamic warm up. If it's a 5K, you definitely want to be running. So make sure that you are getting that warm up in and you've given yourself time for that. Know your fueling plan, and then you're going to want to write down like what is your pacing plan for miles, or effort plan for miles 1 through 3, miles 4 through 10, and then miles 11 through 13. So my recommended pacing is that you're going to miles 1 through 3, you're going to start with a slightly slower than race pace, and your effort should be conversational, but also making sure that you're not too far off of that goal pace, right? And then miles 4 through 10 is where you really lock into the actual like goal pace that you're running. And again, this is going to vary based on the course profile that you have. So for example, Rock and Roll San Diego is there's lots of hills. It is a net decline race, but the beginning, I'm expecting a bit of a net incline. So I know that when I see higher numbers on my pace, I know that I'm going uphill, and it's okay, because sometimes there's false flats. And B, that later in the race, I will be making up that time because I've paced myself right and because of the net decline later in the race. So knowing those things is important to me so that I'm not self-sabotaging in the early miles. And then miles 11 through 13 is really where you start to let it rip. You only have 3 miles left. When you've passed mile 10 and you're starting mile 11, and depending on your fitness and how much training you've done, you should be able to pick up this pace, how well you pace yourself. You should be able to start easing the pace down and really giving it your all in those final miles. So the last thing that's super important is I want you to write down how you're going to celebrate. How are you going to celebrate the end of your race, whether you hit your A, B, or C goal? And imagine yourself doing that and celebrating and all of that. And so then this is the final thing, is I want you to write down 3 mantras that you're going to use during the race for when it's hard. So some of my favorite ones is honestly just simple, like I am strong. Another one that I really like is when I am going uphill is anything worthwhile is uphill. So that's one of them. And I also, when I feel the pain, I remind myself that this is how it's supposed to feel. I think one thing that really gets in runners' heads when we're running a hard race is that we tend to think that it shouldn't feel this difficult, but you are stronger than you think. You can maintain a pace that feels uncomfortable for longer than you think. And so when it does feel uncomfortable, remind yourself that you're racing. This is what you trained for. This is what you did. This is what you put the work in for. And that this discomfort is exactly what professional runners feel that are running a 5-minute mile or 4-minute mile. Like, they feel it too. It doesn't mean that it's wrong or that you're not being successful or that you aren't going to be able to keep it up. It just means that you need to work on those mantras to remind yourself to keep going. Another thing that I really like to do is sometimes I use headphones and I'll tell Siri to play certain songs that really pump me up towards the end of the race. If you just tap on your AirPod, you can literally just speak out loud and say, "Hey Siri, play Run the World," which is the one that I play because it's my team name and it just pumps me up and fills me up with so much inspiration. You can also dedicate some of those final miles to runners. Another thing that to people that you in your life, so you can dedicate a mile to your children or dedicate a mile to someone else in your life that means a lot to you. One last thing is that I will sometimes do something where if it's really getting difficult at the end, I'll do little surges where I'll say okay, I'm just gonna run a little bit faster to that next light. I'm gonna run a little bit faster till I pass that person. Or I'm gonna run a little bit, and I just give myself these short little terms so I can go faster. So you can add that into your race plan if you want. I hope this was helpful, and when the journal is released, I will add it to this video, or to a link to the bottom of this video, so that hopefully it'll help you too. And thanks so much.